Have you ever woken up from a dream that was just so weird or so brilliant that you just had to wonder, why? Why do we do this every single night? It is one of the oldest mysteries of being human. And today, we're going to dive into some of the most fascinating ideas about why we dream.
You know, this obsession with dreams, it is nothing new. We're talking about a quest that goes back millennia. Way back in the 3rd millennia BCE, Mesopotamian kings were already writing down their dreams on wax tablets. Fast forward about 1,000 years, and you've got the ancient Egyptians with an entire book dedicated to interpreting over 100 different dreams. And now, here we are today, still asking that same basic question. The only difference is, instead of wax tablets, we've got brain scanners and all this incredible modern science.
All right, so let's start with the first major school of thought. These are the theories that look inward, the ones that suggest dreams are fundamentally about us processing our own minds, our emotions, our past experiences, and maybe even our deepest desires.
And you really can't talk about dreams without mentioning this guy, Sigmund Freud. Back in the early 1900s, he came up with this really famous idea that all of our dreams, yep, even the scary ones, are kind of wish fulfillment. He believed that the bizarre stuff we remember from a dream is actually a symbolic stand-in for our unconscious urges and our most primitive thoughts. For Freud, dreaming was like having a secret key to your own subconscious.
Now, a more modern spin on this psychological idea is that we dream to heal. And the neurochemistry here is just fascinating. See, during REM sleep, that's the stage where our dreams get really vivid, the brain dramatically dials down the levels of stress-related chemicals. So this creates a sort of calmer mental space where we can reprocess painful memories, but without all the intense emotion. It's like therapy, but you're asleep.
Okay, let's switch gears to a totally different set of theories. These ones see the brain less like a patient needing therapy and more like a super powerful computer. From this perspective, dreams are a critical part of how our brain manages just a massive amount of data every single night.
And we've got some pretty stunning evidence for this. Check out this number, 10x. In a 2010 study, researchers had people try to solve this really complex 3D maze. Now, the group that got to take a nap and actually dreamed about the maze, they performed up to 10 times better than the people who just stayed awake and thought about it, or even those who napped but didn't dream about the maze. So that tells us that dreaming isn't just passive. It's actively helping us lock in memories and get better at things.
Now, to really wrap your head around the next couple of theories, you have to appreciate the massive challenge the brain is facing. Every single thing you think, everything you do, it creates connections between your neurons. We're talking an estimated 10,000 trillion of these connections. How on earth does the brain manage all of that?
Well, this is where things get really interesting, because the theories split. On one side, you have researchers who believe dreams are the brain's way of strengthening important memories, filing away the stuff we need to keep. But then the reverse learning theory says it's the exact opposite. It argues that dreams are just the brain doing some nightly cleaning, getting rid of useless connections so it doesn't get clogged with junk. So the big question is, are we dreaming to remember or are we dreaming to forget?
Then you've got the continual activation theory. This one's a little more mechanical. It basically says that our brain needs to stay active to work right. So when we're asleep and there's almost no information coming in from the outside world, the brain just starts pulling up random files from its memory banks to keep the circuits firing. Your dream in this case might just be a biological screensaver, keeping the whole system from shutting down. Okay, let's pivot again. We've talked psychological, we've talked computational. What about evolutionary? What if dreaming serves a much more ancient, primal purpose? What if it's our built-in training ground for survival? This theory taps right into some of the most common dreams we all have. You know those anxiety dreams, right? Being chased, getting into a fight. The idea here is that these aren't just random stress dreams, they're rehearsals. Your brain is letting you practice your fight or flight response in a totally safe environment. And it's not just about danger. The theory also suggests that other dreams, maybe a pleasant one about an attractive neighbor, could be a safe way to practice our social and reproductive instincts too. And finally, let's look at one of the most exciting theories of all, the idea that we dream to solve problems. The great writer John Steinbeck had a beautiful name for this process. He called it the Committee of Sleep. The whole idea here is pretty simple, right? When we're awake, our minds are stuck playing by the rules of logic and reality. But in a dream, all bets are off. The mind can smash together concepts in bizarre, totally novel ways, creating these limitless scenarios that can lead to incredible breakthroughs we would never, ever think of while we're awake.
And there's no better example of this than the story of the chemist Auguste Kekulé.
He was completely stuck trying to figure out the structure of the benzene molecule. Then, one night, he dreams of a snake biting its own tail, that ancient symbol, the Ouroboros. And he wakes up with a flash of genius. The benzene molecule had to be a ring. It was a Nobel Prize-worthy discovery, basically delivered to him by his very own committee of sleep.
So which is it? Are we dreaming to fulfill wishes, to heal, to manage memories, to practice survival skills, or to solve problems? Well, the truth is, the answer is probably a little bit of all of the above. These theories don't have to cancel each other out. Dreaming is likely this incredibly complex, multi-layered thing that helps us in a whole bunch of ways. And that leaves us with one final thought. What problem is your committee of sleep going to solve tonight?